If you're still there, thank you. I'm not sure what happened. My neighbours have found that their internet went down in the entire road. So I apologise. If you're still with me, thank you for staying with me. If you're not still with me, don't worry. Hopefully we'll meet again. I'm going to kick off. I can only apologise, guys. The first lesson there is if your internet goes down, panic, pray, hopefully it'll pop back up again. There's not a lot else you can do. Do stay with me. I promise. I think you guys need some kind of discount code for that. But always stay calm. That's very key. Right, let me get into it. You guys have waited long enough. So welcome, and do shout if you can't see this. This is what we're trying to do. Let's have another go. I'm going to immediately just check you can all chat to me. Yes, you should be able to chat to me now and give me a shout if you can't. Brilliant. All right, guys, welcome. I'm going to show you how you can make sure you are actually delivering messages that people listen to. Welcome back. Hi, guys. Sorry about that. You might have the greatest idea, product, service in the world. It doesn't matter. Because unless you can communicate exactly what that product, service, idea does for your audience, you might as well have not had the idea in the first place. I am going to show you how you can communicate in a way that actually gets your audience to listen. I'm going to show you the common mistakes I see most of my clients making, and then you guys can fire all of your questions at me. If the internet dies again, I'm so sorry in advance. Do drop me a message and I'll arrange some kind of discount code for you to compensate you for your time. Don't you love technology? Isn't it great? This is what you're going to get today. I'm going to give you everything I can. Honestly, nothing is off limits. As we go through today's workshop, please keep in mind what you do, whether you are looking for your next promotion, whether you are looking to get more people to pay attention to what you are doing, whether you're trying to sell more. All of this is going to be relevant to you. So really think about how you can use this information, focus that into the questions you want to ask. I promise you, I don't think I've ever had a question where I've gone, I'm not going to answer that. So there's no gatekeeping, there are no secrets. These are the common mistakes. This is it. If you are doing one of these three, we've got a problem. The first and greatest mistake, and I've seen it already today with one of my clients, they wouldn't mind me saying, they overstuff. They overstuff because they use a presentation as some kind of test, some kind of verbal exam, so they put everything in there. And the result of that is you might feel like you put a lot in, but if you've ever come away from that piece of communication feeling a little bit deflated, feeling like you said a lot, you can't specifically remember what you said, you're probably overstuffing. Point number two, if you're aiming for perfect, there's no such thing. So you're going to let yourself down every single time because perfect doesn't exist. And that has the knock-on effect of issue number three, you deliver like a politician. I mean, robot. Don't deliver like a robot. We've seen chat AI. It's really good. Up to a point, you're a human being. Talk to me like a human being, and I'll talk back to you like a human being. So we're going to run through the three common mistakes. But before that, let me show you what I mean. This is my intro. Isn't it dull? Is there anything on there you want to read? Do you know how many times in a day I see information presented to me like this? That's perfectly fine. It would work well as a printout and it's interesting to a point, but it's just not engaging. Exactly. You might read the short bits, but not the long ones. There's nothing in here that's going to grab me. It's all about me, 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 me. And I've forgotten I've even got an audience in front of me. But what I'm showing is, look how well I present factual evidence. Something a little bit more personal, like that, is going to do a lot better. My story, how did I get here? And if I'm honest with you, if this wasn't via Zoom, I wouldn't even need that. I would just talk to you as I am. Let's answer that question. How did I get here? Because there's a lesson in here for you, and it's this. I haven't always done this. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, so I know what I'm doing. But the reason I started doing what I was doing is because I used to work, and still do work, with some really intelligent people. They were really intelligent finance minds. And those finance minds had these incredible complicated ideas and these wonderful technical details. And they would then try and explain their message to roomfuls of people, and no one would understand what they were saying. And I was just kind of a small finance person in the background, and I noticed that they weren't going for the headlines. They were trying to prove themselves through information. Not only that, because they were trying to prove themselves through information, they just put in as much complicated detail as they could. The difference between that and good communication is proven with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs looked at the phrase 5 megabytes of storage and thought, it doesn't land right. How about we call it 1,000 songs in the back of your pocket? It's the same piece of information, but the second time round, it's delivered in a way that the audience cares about. My purpose comes from that gap, comes from turning the 5 megabytes into 1,000 songs in the back of your pocket. I am fascinated by the way people communicate. I like seeing the mistakes, and I like showing people, that's what I'm going to do today, how just a few short tweaks can take you from overstuffing it, overcomplicating it, technical information, to high impact, clear, concise messages that your audience understands. Not only understands, but is interested in. This is what I do. And actually, I've realized I have, in fact, started this workshop, not only by having a huge internet failure, but also lying to you, because unfortunately, I looked at my LinkedIn profile the other day. I've actually been doing this for 9 years. Time is moving terrifyingly quickly. This is what I do. I work with CEOs who want to go from the CEO to the rock star of their industry. A couple of sessions before this one, I could sort of really show off because I was running the session from the O2 Arena, because my client was on stage and I was backstage just prepping the notes, running a workshop. I felt very high end, I'll tell you that. This is what we do. We make people feel like rock stars when they present, as opposed to, this is technical, this is deflating, this is dull for me, so it's definitely dull for them. Just to show you I'm valid, you can occasionally Google me. I have worked for a handful of names that I've stuck on this screen. If you don't recognize your industry and those clients below, ping me a message. It's likely I've worked with someone familiar to you, someone near to you. I just haven't chosen to put them on the screen. So if you don't see anyone there who rings a bell, let me know and I will get some names across to you. Let's get into it. Let's start with number 1. Hopefully, I've just shown you what overstuffing looks like. Take a look at the screen. I want you to think of your next piece of communication as an advert for shower gel. Now, shower gel should be a really simple product to sell, right? It's basically soap. You put it on your body, it makes you clean. You would be amazed at how even something as simple as that message can be overcomplicated. So look at what we've got on here, and you're welcome to type in the chat box what you think is wrong with it. So busy, too much text. No one's got time to read that. Cluttered, busy. It's really difficult to read, isn't it? You've got, yeah, it's confusing. It's a body wash. What's yeah, exactly. It actually gives you directions as to how to use a body wash. Way too much information. It's overstuffed, it's complicated. There is nothing in here that grabs me. It talks to me. This might have been generated by AI. It actually hasn't been generated by AI. This was put together by a human. I found it a long time ago and thought, what a brilliant example of someone who is so desperate to evidence to you what their shower gel does. They have put in everything. They've even made up words like touch activated fragrance technology, which, by the way, is not a thing. You don't need to make up words. You don't need to make up sentences that people don't understand. You certainly don't need to put in instructions. But this is a really great metaphor for what I see all the time in my world. People who just put in way too much information because they feel like they have to prove themselves. They have to evidence they've done their homework. And the impact is little to nothing. Yes, I think you're right. It is early 2000s, so might explain a few things, but there were some good adverts. Contrast that to this next slide that I found, which I think is much more powerful. Now, it's a little bit provocative, but why is this effective? Type in the chat box if you have any ideas as to why I like this one. Yes, of course, Claire. Shock factor. Yes. Attention grabbing. It's screaming, look at me. It's doing everything the first advert is trying to achieve. It definitely catches your eye. It's definitely great copy. Great copy, Sarah. And there is almost no writing in it. That's the trick with great copy. That's the trick with great communication. Less is always, always more. It's so memorable. Imagine if your next piece of communication goes from that to that. I'm not saying you need to be rude. I'm not saying you need to be provocative, but I am saying you should surprise me. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is unexpected. The more unexpected you can make your information, the more people will take note. And even if you don't want to surprise people, even if you don't want to add in the shock factor, the less is more approach still has impact. You don't even really acknowledge what the brand is, but you know what it looks like. Feeling dirty? Take a shower. Less is more. That's what your next presentation, piece of communication, your next pitch, your next negotiation should look like. Talk to me like a human being. And if you found yourself going, then you've just had an emotional reaction to a shower gel. This one, no emotional reaction other than confusion, possible frustration. Either way, you're not going to look at it. This one, or ugh. Either way, it reacts to you like a human being. Talk to me like you're a human being. Stop overstuffing. That's lesson one. And I want to give you a case study. I want to bring to life for you some clients I work with and the mistakes I see. And the story I've just told you about overstuffing and overcomplicating, the first client I think of is a client who came to us really in my early days, and they'd created a bit of code, a little algorithm. The algorithm wasn't anything special, but it had been designed to go in a satellite navigation device, so a GPS, like what you can see on the screen. The USP of this particular bit of code was with that code, sat in that GPS system, sat in the vehicle. Whatever vehicle it was sat in would get to wherever it was going 60 to 90 seconds faster than any other vehicle on the road at that time. Which probably isn't very interesting until you consider that this had been written, no, nothing dirty here, Gerald, that this product had been designed for the emergency service vehicles. So this product was designed to get one of those vehicles to wherever it was going 60 to 90 seconds faster than any other vehicle on the road at that time. This was a client, and the client presented us the pitch so that we could work out why he wasn't selling any of this particular bit of coding. And the pitch sounded a little bit like this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the C3 4.0 satellite navigation device. It works via a series of satellites that are positioned across the UK. The blue chip data technology, which is located here at the back of the product, will receive income. I don't care. I don't care about your product because I don't understand your product and I don't know what it does, and I've already bought out, if I'm honest. In your pitch, the first 30 seconds is the most important 30 seconds you have in the entire thing. If you start telling me about the blue chip data technology, which is not something I can comprehend quickly, it's going to do the same as that first shower gel advert. So what we do is we come in and we go, why does this matter? If this is not about the blue chip data technology, what is it about? It's about a very simple less is more message. It's about one thing, in fact. This product saves lives. That's it. Exactly. Once you've gotten the what's in it for me factor across, you don't need to know anything about the blue chip data technology. Or if you want, you can add that in, but it needs to be much later on in the pitch. Before I even know what the product does or how it works, I need to understand why this matters to me. This saves lives. That's it. And I think what you've actually got on the screen here is a pitch we used, or rather a PowerPoint we used. So now hopefully you're starting to see the difference. You're starting to realize perhaps in your own slides, there are certainly a few opportunities to cut. There is certainly a way you could take that less is more approach. If you are sat here knowing next week you have asked to deliver a talk for maybe 45 minutes, an hour, and you know you've got 15 minutes of good material, you have two options. You either do the 15 minutes of good material and then do filler for the remaining 45, or you do 15 minutes of good material followed by some Q&A, and then you dare close the session early. Less is more, always. No one in the history of me understanding audiences has ever complained about a piece of communication being too short. And that's how you solve the first problem. I will just finish that story by saying I now know that that piece of coding exists in most emergency service vehicles across the UK. His pitch got through because people outside of coding understood what the product could do for them. And at that point, it started to sell. Change the communication, people will quite literally buy your idea. Problem two, they aim for perfect. If you're a perfectionist, you don't need to put your hand up, but perhaps just admit that there may be some perfectionist tendencies within you. What does that look like? Well, you might recognize this. You're coming up to a presentation, pitch, a meeting, whatever it is, and you prepare. Good, that's fantastic. You should be preparing. And then you practice. Fantastic, you should be practicing. And then somewhere in between those two cogs, you hold yourself accountable to a level of perfection so unachievable, not even the greatest speaker of all time would be able to meet that bar. You go up, the bar is here, you hit here. In your eyes, you've missed it completely. In the audience's eyes, you've absolutely smashed it. You go away from that performance absolutely kicking yourself, tearing yourself apart for umming, for erring, for forgetting that really one crucial point you wanted to make on slide 72. If any of that is ringing a bell, it's time to start examining how much that perfectionism is helping, because I suspect it's not. And again, I've already seen this at least once today. Holding yourself accountable to unachievable levels of success, it's not going to happen. Aside from that, it's out of your control. I wasn't going to be able to predict today that the internet was about to collapse 2 minutes in, but there we are. You just have to roll with it. So stop holding yourself to that has to be 100%. 100% doesn't exist. I have even told my clients in the past, stop aiming for perfect, aim for confidently average. Dolly Parton says something brilliant, costs a lot of money to look this cheap. It certainly does. And it also takes a lot of preparation and a lot of practice to look as though you just woke up one morning, rolled up on stage, delivered something that was natural, off the cuff, really just going with it. I know those people are my clients. We make those talks look as though they're just natural, off the cuff. So if you're worried about umming and erring and forgetting bits and pieces here, those are the bits and pieces that make it really interesting. Those are the bits and pieces that make it brilliant. But again, if you're going, it can't be this, it can't be that, if you get in your own head, if you overthink it, you're really going to start to struggle with this stuff. And let me show you what that looks like in terms of a phobia. Let me show you how that might look to somebody who has, let's say, a fear of flying. You might not have a fear of flying, but if you do, you might be someone who, in the run-up to getting on a flight, thinks about all of the things that could go wrong. They think about the worst possible outcome of that getting on a flight. And it starts quite small. I might miss the flight. They might lose my luggage. There might be a delay. It gets slightly bigger. What if the pilot's drunk? What if there's a bomb on the plane? What if the plane's about to go into the sea? And we start this spiral thinking. Now, you and I, if we don't have a phobia of flying and we're perfectly rational about getting on a plane, are quite comfortable sat there going, well, that's not logical thinking. You're focusing on a very unlikely worst case scenario. But if you are someone who has a phobia, it's very difficult to get to a point where you're able to see the wood for the trees again. And let me show you how we try and wake you out of that. The red dot represents the negative thought process. You spend your time thinking about what's going to go wrong, how it's going to really not work out as you planned. The more energy and attention you give that false red dot, stuff that might happen isn't likely, the more time you spend on that red dot, the bigger that red dot grows, the more uncontrollable that thought process becomes. What are these two olivey type patterns over here? Well, let's try and get really technical here. I might even get a mouse out. So hopefully you can see that. But let's say in the big circle is every single flight you've ever gotten on. And by the fact you're here listening to me, I can guarantee you that every single flight you normally take gets off and lands and is fine. Wasn't brilliant. I wasn't expecting it to be brilliant, but the minimum expectation I have for every single flight I ever get on is that it should take off and it should land. Sometimes you'll have an above average experience of flying, just about here. So let's say every now and then you get on a flight and it's the dream. They are perhaps in the minority, but there's ones you turn up to the airport, there are no queues, the plane is on time, it takes off and it lands on time and you're in a wonderful destination. Do you think someone with a phobia of flying spends any time at all thinking about that time they got on a flight and it was fun or better than flying? Of course they don't. They spend all their time, energy, and attention focusing on the worst possible scenario. Same thing for my perfectionist clients. The more time they spend thinking about, the CEO might walk in, I might go bright red, they might see me go bright red, I've lost all professional credibility. The more time they spend thinking about the worst possible outcome, the more realistic that outcome feels in their head. We have to work with those kind of clients to really help them work out what is fact and what is fiction. But once they're able to separate rational and irrational thoughts, they become much more confident speakers. I cannot tell you how many clients I have worked with who, and this is extraordinary to me still, take beta blockers before their presentations or before their next meeting to just make sure they are getting through it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, that is going to work in the short term. But in the long term, that is really not a very healthy solution at all. That's just kind of putting off the inevitable. So if you are going into that headspace whereby you're thinking, I don't want to be here, I would give all the money I had not to have to do this, I might have to take medication to get through it, it is time you came and had a chat with me. I can never get rid of the nerves completely, but I can get you off the beta blockers. I have done that. I have turned people who have mysterious illnesses on the morning of their presentation into people who know they can present and they want to present. First thing this morning, somebody who had really crippling stage fright and anxiety when we first started working together said to me, Susie, I am never going to get rid of this stage fright fully, but I feel so different about presenting. It's turned from fear to excitement. And now instead of thinking about all of the things that could go wrong, I think of all of the opportunities public speaking might offer me. So that was a really nice morning. I was very pleased with that individual. Last little thing, they deliver like a robot. We have raced through a lot today. So what does it look like when you're delivering? Yeah, Vinny is, if anyone's seen the chat box, Vinny is a brilliant individual. He's gone from presenting to a handful of people to over 300. You can do it. And it's always going to feel a little bit edgy, even for me. And I'm a professional public speaker. But the more you kind of face up to the fact that nerves are normal, the more you'll be able to do this. Shout out to Winnie. Vinny. Nerves are normal. If you tell me you are not nervous, there is either something medically wrong with you or you are lying. Nerves are normal, but with work, with preparation, with some coaching, you can turn those nerves into excitement, into anticipation, into this is a brilliant opportunity for me. And you're going to feel a lot more in control the next time you have to get your message out. Last little problem. My clients that deliver like a robot because that feels safe. And I've even had some people read off scripts whilst they're on the Zoom. Don't do that. I'd rather you got it wrong than reading off a script, because I could have just read the script in my own time. And of course we can tell. We know exactly when people are reading off scripts to us. I want a human being with all of your mistakes and flaws and your internet crashes that are unexpected. Let's have human-to-human communication. There is a reason we loathe politicians as speakers and we love comedians. Think about that for a moment. Why is it that people love comedians and loathe people in power? I mean, I especially just like these two images, for example. Politicians tell us, do as I say, not as I do. They're often giving very dry, complicated messages in their own internal type of language, and we struggle to understand them, and they seem a bit preachy, and they seem a bit telly-offy, and they seem too technical and too complicated. Comedians are just there to be vulnerable, to just tell you about their day, to make you feel better about yourself through their mistakes. The answer to that question is honesty. It's authenticity. I think when I first started doing this job, the one thing my clients wanted more than anything else was confidence. Susie, make me confident. Make me the most confident person in the room. I can't. I really can't. But as time's gone on, I think people like Simon Sinek, Barack Obama, whilst they're confident, more so than that, they're authentic. They're willing to show that they're vulnerable. They're willing to share something about their day. That is worth more than any statistic, piece of data, piece of technical information you could throw about me. Why? Because people buy people. That's it. That's the whole lesson there. When you want to make that point and you're making it clearly, it seems so difficult to get across just that key message. It's very easy to put in as much information as possible. So if you want to sound like a robot, that's linked to overstuffing it. The more information you put in, the more pressure you put on yourself to get it all across. I would rather have somebody who stood up, gave me one key message, and it was a good, powerful 6-minute talk followed by Q&A time, than someone who said, let's see how much I can stuff in 20 minutes. And in order to do that, I'm going to need that script that I know I deliver every single key point. Your audience aren't going to remember every single key point. In fact, your audience have a good chance of remembering just about one key message that you get across. If you're lucky, 2. Once you have transferred that information from you to other people, your job is done. Sit down, relax. That's it. That's all you needed to do. If you decide you need to deliver a presentation to transfer information in the same way a robot kind of pumps out content, never going to work. We like human-to-human communication. So these are all of the mistakes I see, and I just want to run you through them. And again, if you recognize yourself anywhere in here, perhaps it might be time to have a conversation or a chat with me. If you read out slides, the irony of that is good. scripts, trying to prove your credibility. We want to hear from you just as you are. And the trap that all of this represents is this. It's people who start their presentation, talk, or even pitch by saying, before I tell you why you should care about this, why this should matter to you, I'm going to give you my bio. We're going to go through awards I've won. We're going to talk about how credible I am. I'm going to justify to you why I deserve to be here. If you find yourself justifying to an audience why you deserve to be the one speaking, it is time to change. What does that look like? Well, funnily enough, I have more than a few clients who do that. I see it a lot in obviously academic institutions, but equally in the finance world. What people in finance tend to do is exactly that. They're bright people, they're intelligent people, they really know their stuff. But for whatever reason, when it comes to showing that they know their stuff, they just see how much information they can fit in. I have a client who is a financial advisory firm. Within that firm, I am fascinated by two individuals. There is the CEO who's been there for basically since day one. And then there's the guy I work with. He's head of data research. So he knows exactly the information he's putting together. Every quarter, I think they have to do a nice conference in front of some potential clients. And that's the aim of their game here. They do this conference because they are trying to pick up new clients. So they need to show that they know their stuff. Or do they? Because there are always two presentations I see at that event. There is the head of research who stands up and he proves and demonstrates through graphs, through statistics, through charts, through acronyms that no one understands, exactly how much he knows about market conditions, exactly where he thinks it's going to go, exactly where he thinks you should be putting your money. And no one understands a word he's saying. And it gets to his Q&A and there are no Qs. There are no As either, because he's just delivered everything he knows about market conditions and everyone is reeling from that information. My client, on the other hand, and we work together rarely because he doesn't need my help so much, but he has been telling these same two golfing jokes I've heard for the past 6 years of working with that company. He lands a key message about what he's trying to achieve for his clients. And when it comes to Q&A, you can just tell there are people in that audience who go, you're the person for me. You're the person who I want to look after my money. Now, isn't that fascinating? It should be the other way around. The guy who proves his worth is weight in gold. The guy who really demonstrates he knows his stuff. And then there's the guy who's really given us almost no information. He says he plays golf. He tells a couple of jokes. He gets a few laughs and says, we really like looking after our clients. We genuinely care about them. Why is it that the second speaker, my client, always picks up more new customers? It's because people tend to buy people. And when we look at buying people, really the question we have in the forefront of our mind is, at the end of a long, hard day, I don't really want to chat about finance. Which of these characters would I want to go to the pub with? That is really how we make our choices, especially the golfers in that audience. He's really worked out what his audience are all about, and it's golf. So what I'm trying to do with this guy at the moment, we're really getting there, is go from trying to justify how good he is through all of the information he has, to taking that focus off of himself and looking at the people in front of them. What do they want? A few jokes, a few case studies, a few client transformation stories, just as I'm doing here, and you will be amazed at how many more people are now engaging with him. Less is more. Talk like a human and people are going to buy into what you're saying. Easy. And it's the most common mistake to do it the other way around. Tell jokes, be human, show personality. So that's it. The three biggest mistakes, how you should overcome them. Stop putting in information that isn't relevant to your key point. Stop holding yourself to unachievable levels of perfection because it doesn't exist and it's uninteresting. Be yourself. Tell jokes, tell stories, talk to me like you know your product, like the audience knows your product. Stop telling people what you want to tell them. Start telling people what they want to hear. Do that, and like the 3 stories I've given you, you will see your confidence increase. You'll get a better understanding of what the audience needs from you, and you will start to sell. People will start to listen to you. That's it. It's simple. 3 things I want you to take away from today. You can tell it's been a long morning already. Talk in terminology that makes people care. Do not deliver me slides. It's the Steve Jobs thing. It's not 5 megabytes. It's 1,000 songs in the back of your pocket. Practice. Practicing isn't about perfectionism, but the more you get those ideas from down here to through here, the better you will sound. And finally, your internet's going to go down sometimes. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. Doesn't matter. Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me how frustrating that was. Swear a little, be yourself, and I'm going to buy from you, as strange as that sounds, because I'm a human being who's relieved to see that you too are another human being. If all of that sounds a little bit too complicated, then you can come along to my academy. I have created a product because, quite frankly, I have maxed out on clients. I cannot fit in any more one-on-one people for a very long time. I really am passionate about this. I really do want people to be clearer in their communication. Any problem that's being had in a company, in a relationship, in anything, can normally be traced back to communication or lack thereof. Sarah, I'm so pleased. So this is what it looks like. It is an online academy. You enlist yourself for 12 months. You get 2 of these modules every month. You learn in your own time. They are not an hour long, because who has an hour a week? You get 2 hours worth of material delivered in 5-10 minute segments. So you can watch them on the train, on the bus, wherever you want. Thank you, guys. It's going to show you everything you need to know. You're going to learn how to do body language that makes sense. You're going to learn how to tackle stage fright. There are exercises. Do it in your own time. On top of that, we've got a tool called Udly. You talk into Udly. Udly tells you how you're sounding. And then on top of that, an actual speech coach will tell you how you're sounding, because everyone knows you need a human being to tell you how you're improving. The AI is good, but it's not a human being. Thank you so much. That's what it looks like. That's what it costs. I really have tried this on a few people already. They're mainly clients already have, people I already know. They are absolutely loving it so far. They keep telling me to put my price up, but I'm very keen to keep it at this introductory price just for you guys. If you just tell me, yeah, I was on your call the other day, I really want to be part of the online sessions, do get in touch. Like I say, the guinea pigs, for no want of better words, are absolutely loving it. If you want one-on-one coaching services, we can offer that too. The best way to describe the one-on-one coaching services, if you've ever seen the film, The King's Speech, it's exactly that. Here we are, Vinny, he's already given me a quote. Vinny, we are using your quote. I hope you don't mind. We've got Sam's quote as well. If ever you've come across Sam, she is brilliant, but these are people I've worked with. They are people who enjoy what I say. If you want to learn more about this, then please get in touch with me. Shout out to Sam, shout out to Vinny. I love this. The enthusiasm, it's wonderful. What's great is if you go on one of Sam's courses, she does the same back to me. So it's a strange little loop. If you want to see yourself get that next promotion, if you want to see yourself get over your stage fright or get it under your control, if you want to see your confidence increase in this, if you want to see your sales increase, drop me a message. I will work out which of my solutions I can offer you, whether it's private coaching, enrolling yourself on the academy, or just running an in-house workshop. Give me a call. I've got about 5 hours next week. So if you've got time, then perhaps we can find a slot where we can have a little chat. So drop me a message now, and I will get you on whatever solution I think will work best for you, or indeed whatever solution you think will work best for you. So that's it. It's the introductory offer. We are launching on the 17th of April. So after the 17th of April, which is terrifyingly soon, the price will go up. Get it now whilst it's at the low price that I feel very excited about. That's it. Here's the bit you all want. I'm going to come off the slides. please do chuck your questions into the chat and we'll go from there. I do hope there's a question, just one. Okay, all right. I think I can answer questions from Sarah and Carol in 2-in-1. How do you prep for a presentation? How do you prep for a 60-minute pitch? If you only have 10 minutes, here is what I would do. Ask yourself the following 2 questions. Question number 1, why am I here? Question number 2, in a weird hypothetical situation where the audience have a strange kind of memory and they're only able to remember one single sentence from everything I'm about to say, what would I want that one single sentence to be? Once you have perfected or gotten to a good place, that one single sentence, your job is really simple. It's about transferring that piece of information from you to the many. I don't care if that takes you 60 seconds or 60 minutes. Get that message across. To be clear, it shouldn't really be taking you 60 minutes. You're telling them why it matters. If in 60 seconds you can even wrap that up in a case study that demonstrates, like that, this saved lives, add in an example of a time that the product has been used to save a life. If you can do that in 60 seconds, that's the best use of the 60 seconds you can have. Do not waste time giving them your name, who you are, your qualifications, just that why, just that one key message. If you can fit in a case study, even better. How do you organize yourself to sound collected when someone asks a question? Of course, right. I had this morning. This is a great one. If someone asks you a question, you have 2 possible outcomes. You either know the answer, fantastic, answer the question, or you don't know the answer. If you're in between, buy yourself some time by saying, wow, that's a great question. Use that time to now think about your answer. And I want you to answer your question like this. Answer the question, give an example, and answer the question again. Answer, evidence, answer. So if someone says to you, Susie, which is better, tea or coffee? I'm going to answer the question. Coffee is the obvious answer to that question. The reason the answer is coffee is that studies have shown me drinking coffee improves my mood by 60% every time I wake up in the morning. And that's just not something tea can do. So for me, every single time, the answer is going to be coffee. You see what I did? Answer, evidence, answer. So that's how you answer a question. If you don't know the answer to the question, it's very simple. You say this: I don't have the answer to that right now, and I wouldn't want to give you information that is false. Give me your email address. I'm going to check this with my colleague or check this on my computer, and I'm going to get back to you because I want to get you an answer to your question. Has your credibility gone down? It's gone up. It's gone up because you show you care, and you show you care about authentic answers as well. Never be afraid of an I don't know, I'll get back to you. So I hope that's helped. It's definitely coffee, isn't it? Brilliant. Words, tips for stopping weasel words. Yeah, there is a lot of sewing about, isn't there? I'm very bad at the so's, especially when my internet goes down. Do you know what, David? I would say, don't worry about it too much. With so's are a bit like umming and erring. If in your head you get down this idea of it has to be word perfect, I can't I can't I can't so, you will find that becomes the only thought in your head and it becomes the only thing you can focus on. So's and ums and ers are actually quite a natural way of communicating, quite a natural way of speaking to somebody if you were down the pub. The more you if I was to say to you, don't think of a red balloon, you'd immediately start thinking about a red balloon. I found ums and ers and so's are the same. Be conscious of them, but don't give yourself a hard time for them. If you are sewing a bit too much, that indicates to me you need to slow down. Every time you see a new slide, challenge yourself to a 5-second pause. Look at the slide whilst your audience looks at the slide and then go, the point I want to make here. And in that 5-second pause, you've thought about how you want to start your sentence. So you don't just go, so, turn that so into a pause. What else have we got? My question is in the Q&A. I'm delighted to hear it. How do you approach a presentation that you need to email onto a client? Therefore, it needs context. Okay, Adele, this is a tricky one, but I think I understand your question. I'm going to try and answer it, but tell me if I've not quite understood it. I think you're asking about clients say, do this presentation, then they don't turn up, so you then have to email them the presentation. And if your slides are good, they won't make sense without a context. If I forwarded my slide deck to someone today, they'd be like, what? This doesn't make any sense at all. If your slides don't make sense without the speaker, then that's a sign that they're good slides. But if someone's then going to read them, it's a bit of an issue. Ultimately, if it matters, if this is an important presentation, if this is new business potential presentation or messaging, you need to put in a little bit more effort, and you need to put 2 slide decks together. There's the handout and then there's the presentation. The good news is if you do the handout, you can then build the presentation out of the handout. The handout should never be presented. Too many times I see individuals and company present something to me and I go, well, that would have made a fantastic handout, but as a presentation, it was just someone reading slides out loud. So do 2 separate presentations. One functions as the handout, one is images that you present. It's their choice if they don't come to the presentation. Make it clear, make it engaging, but we're looking at 2 slide decks, I'm afraid. Someone doesn't have a question, that's fine. I'll most likely forget if something goes wrong. Public speaking is the #1 phobia in the world. #2 phobia in the world is death. If you find yourself saying, I would rather die than do next week's presentation, you are statistically correct. No one loves this. No one really loves this. I promise you. That's why my job exists. There are a lot of us about. Speaking coaches exist for a reason. No one really adores presenting. No one really enjoys being made to feel uncomfortable. You are not alone. That's my message to you. What if you don't understand the question they're asking? Start a dialogue. That happens to me a lot. Just as I did there, I'm going to give you an answer. If that's, I really want to help you. So let's make sure I understand the question, make them go back, make them redeliver. And you're right. Sometimes it's not you. They're just a little bit on the spot and they're trying to get their question across in a way that doesn't make sense to you. So go, can you clarify that bit? Do you mean this? Can you give me an example of what you mean? Questions like that to clarify the question not only engage the audience, but it gives you a little bit more time to think about the answer. So start talking to each other, work it out together. Anxiety management, it's going to happen. It is going to happen. Do you recommend breathing exercise? What's your trick other than good prep? What is my trick? For me, music. The irrational thoughts are normal. They really are. So even I will go, what if? I've done maybe over 10,000 presentations, but what if this one is the one I really mess up in? That's normal. I combat that thought by going, what evidence do I have to suggest that this, out of all of the presentations, is going to be the one that I finally mess up? And I realize I have no evidence. What evidence do I have to suggest that this is the presentation is going to be fine because I've practiced and prepared and I've done it before? Got quite a lot of evidence in that category. So I'll ask myself, what's fact, what's fiction, to really separate clear thinking from irrational thinking. Breathing exercises help. I promise you that when the internet down briefly, I was doing this. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. There's not a lot you can do. I was also quite sweary, which again, I suspect is normal. Music for me, I have classic FM radio on, just very lightly in the background, and sometimes 90s hip hop. Whatever works for you, you've got to find it. But I hope that gives you just a taste of the things that help. Would you send a longer form text presentation brochure? Yes, absolutely, Louise, I would. And hopefully that was covered earlier. Definitely. That then gives you all the freedom you want to have to really wow them in the pitch, all of the details, all of the text, all of the stuff that they might want to read into, they can take away and do in their time as homework and research. And they will. If you're in a pitching situation, it's well within their interest to do that. So don't be afraid to put the non-high impact stuff into that handout that goes out. And this is crucial, Louise. That handout should go out before or after you have finished speaking. We have all done that thing of giving the handout at the same time as the presentation. And all that happens is this, they start to read the handout whilst watching you. And now they're not focusing on either of those. So make sure it's either before or after. David says, thank you. Thank you to you, David. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Fantastic, guys. I think that takes us, was a golfing joke, David. It's so boring, I can't remember it, but they love it and it's effective. Brilliant. Guys, drop me a message if you are interested in those products. We do make a difference. We do get sales. Most importantly for me, we turn people who hate this into people who can do it and do it well. Get in touch. Thank you for your time. I'm going to hang around in case you want to have a quick chat with me, but you are free to go. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye. Thanks. Thanks so much. I apologize for the Wi-Fi. I hope that never happens again, but chances are it will. Thanks, guys. It's great to have you there. Yes, please do email me about the coaching. I think I dropped you an email, but I'll try again. I might not have your email address correct. It is mad technology, isn't it? It makes no sense. Excellent. All right. I'm going to leave you to it. Take care, all of you. Drop me a message. Hope to see you very soon.